It's that time of week. It's time for Diary of a Physicist Farmgal, episode number 23. My name is Deborah, and I'm coming to you here in the Arkansas Ozarks. And I am a rabid crafter. I like to make all the crafts. I like to sew. I like to quilt. I crochet. I knit. I make baskets. I make jewelry. I like to try all kinds of different crafts, and I love learning new things. So I'll share some of that. I'm also a university professor. I am a professor of physics and astronomy at a local university. So I like to talk about science topics, and I like to talk about especially women in STEM topics, and also how science relates to both my crafting and my farming, because I am a third generation family farmer. I live here on my family farm. I moved home in 2005 to save the farm, and I have done that. I raise grass-fed beef cattle. I raise horses. I raise show poultry and heritage poultry and show quality rabbits. I also have a herd and a retirement home, if you want to think of it, for some miniature horses, some miniature donkeys, and a miniature mule named Pumpkin who thinks she rules the roost. And as you can tell from my charming and sweet co-host here, Willie, I am also fur kid mom to 14 dogs, 6 indoor cats, and an undetermined number of outside cats. So if you think that sounds kind of interesting, I hope you'll come along with us. If you're a new viewer, welcome to the Funny Farm. And if you're a returning viewer, I sure am glad you're coming back to visit with me on this week's episode of Diary of a Physicist Farmgal. Okay, if you're looking for me on social media, you can find my farm Facebook page is the same as my YouTube channel name. It's Buckthorn Farms. Also, you can find me on Ravelry and on Instagram as Doc Firewoman. There is also a Ravelry group for the podcast, Diary of a Physicist Farmgal, where you can find out about MAKEALONGS and giveaways. I had just had a 100 subscriber giveaway. I need to get those prizes in the mail. I told the girls that my training bill on my gelding was kind of hit me harder than I expected, so I'm going to mail those on Friday because it's payday. Yay for payday at the end of summer. But anyway, so I'm going to put those in the mail, and we're starting a make-along on September 1st called Share the Warmth. And it is where we aim to make things for charity that share warmth with someone, whether it's literally sharing the warmth with people who might be on a little bit of hard times and need a hat or a warm scarf or a warm pair of mittens or a blanket, or maybe someone in a nursing home who's feeling a little lonely that could use something to literally keep them warm, or someone who needs something to figuratively keep them warm, like a cozy sweater or just a scarf, you know, to know that they were being thought about. There was a really wonderful thing in the chatter thread where someone posted a shawl that they were knitting at a local restaurant while they were waiting for their food, and one of the older ladies that worked there had commented on how pretty it was, and they said, I think I'm gonna go back and give it to her. And I think that that's a wonderful heartfelt thing, and that is exactly the spirit of what I want this make along to be for our two-legged people who need some warmth. It can be for anybody. It can be for animals who need warmth. So I'm pretty wide open in terms of charity. And I'm going to start another make-along. Yes, I'm a little over the top, I guess, but I don't care. It just struck me this afternoon, and I'm going to talk about it in final thoughts, but when we'll make it more formal next week. But I am going to start a new make-along. So even if you don't want to hear about science and you don't want to hear about farming, you might skip to the end and see what I've got to say about the new make-along, because it was put on my heart today to do this and to share these thoughts with you, and I'm going to share them at the end in final thoughts. So we're going to move on now. I don't have a doggone thing finished this week to show y'all. You know, school started back, and it's cut into my crafting time fairly significantly. Plus, I got Bo back from the trainer, and I've been doing a lot of horse stuff. But we'll talk more about that in farming. So, I don't have anything finished this week, but I do have some progress on a couple of my things. So I will share those with you in works in progress. Okay, I'm going to start my works in progress with my most successful work in progress this week. And it is here in my Silver Shed USA Pretty Purple Foxes bag. They are Silver Shed USA on Etsy. And it is the Sunrise, Sunburn, Sunset Cowl by A Crocheting Hoovian, Laura Consort, and she is doing a participation knit along in it on her Ravelry group that runs through the 31st, which is Friday. But, you know, I suppose it's conceivable you could get started with one of these by Friday. And so you could go there and do that. I dropped some stitches. I am knitting it out of Expressions Fiber Arts. Lights are turned way down low, and I believe this is MCN yarn. I have lost the tag somewhere in the midst of time, but when I find it, I will let you know. So this lights are turned down low, and it's got some beautiful golds and blue, purpley blues in there and greens. It was a Christmas colorway from last year. This is a very straightforward knit. It's very easy to knit while you're watching TV or at a meeting, which is what I've been doing. And if you remember the last time I shared this with you, I had just started the ribbing. So now I am through the first set of the lacy section or the eyelet section, and I'm working on the middle part of that. There's 3 sets of this eyelet section. So I'm not going to have this finished by the 31st, but I have made some definite progress on it. I really do like the pattern. I highly recommend it. It's her first cowl pattern, I believe, so I would go check that out. And also go check out her podcast. It's very interesting. I enjoy listening to it each time she puts one out, so go check her out. So anyway, that is the Sunrise, Sunburn, Sunset Cowl by Laura Consort of the A Crocheting Hoovian podcast. Okay? All right. So there's that. Now, well, that reminds me there's something in here I want to show you later, so I'm going to take that out and set it over to the side. Okay, my next work in progress is in my April 9 Designs medium-sized zipper pouch. She is also on Etsy. She has Instagram, which is April 9 Designs on Etsy is her Instagram name. I love her bags. They're extremely well made. They've always got this nice little tape measure, or not always, but these particular brands have the tape measure sewn into them. And she usually gives you a little progress keeper that matches the theme of your bag. And my progress keeper is on my work in progress that is tucked down inside this bag. So this yarn is the Tits Out Collective yarn that was by Honeybee Knits. So Honeybee Knits, and this was her, it's called Be Positive. Okay, this was her Be Positive translation of that yarn, and I love the happy, beautiful colors of this. It just makes me smile every time I look at it. So, Willie, this craft room is so piled up, he's just burrowing around in it like a groundhog. But anyway, I am making, out of this, I am making a Risen Knits pattern. It's called We Were Seeds. And she had a pattern sale back in the spring. And she has them fairly often, so keep an eye out on her Instagram. It's Risen Knits on Instagram. This is a 1 skein fingering weight shawl, or you can do it in different sizes and different weights, obviously. And the whole idea was they tried to bury us, but they did not know we were seeds. And so the whole thing has a theme of growing things. So I took this to Knit Night. I went to my local yarn shop's Knit Night. It's the only time this fall I will probably be able to go because it's on Tuesday night and I work late on Tuesday night. But I did make some progress on the section. I'm past the sprouted seed stitch section, and now I'm into the roots section. So I've added, I was here where that orange progress keeper is, and now I'm up here. So I've made that much progress on it since you last saw this. Okay, and so I'm very pleased with that. I did go to Knit Night, and I was working from a chart, and I learned really fast I can't do that. Because first of all, I'm having to read the chart opposite anyway, because, you know, being a lefty, and I'm having to switch my knit 2 togethers and my slip knits to get the correct effect. And I can't think about all that while people are talking. So the one thing I had to do was I actually wrote out the chart directions on a piece of paper just because I was forgetting to switch my knits and my purls on my right sides and my wrong sides, I ended up ripping out every single stitch that I did at knit night, which is fine because I ended up knitting it back in like a third of the time because I wasn't visiting, you know, which, you know, that's kind of what knit night is for, right? I should have known better. I had gone to ask Stephanie for some help on it to make sure I was doing something right, and I was, and so that was totally worth having to take stuff out. So anyway, so oh, I forgot to show you my little llama progress keeper. Let me pull this back out. You might have noticed him, but this came with the April 9 Designs bag, and all her bags come with some kind of a progress keeper. Okay, so yay. That is knitting that I can't work on as social knitting. Okay, that is something that I need to work on here when I can concentrate. Now I could probably watch TV, but I would have to be able to concentrate. So okay, my last work in progress is in my Tesla Knits periodic table bag. Yay, periodic table. I believe she still has her shop on Etsy also. She was going to close it at one point, but I think it is still there. And these are the Couch and Crackers socks by Julia from the Happy Knitting Podcast. And this is a very straightforward, simple pattern with an afterthought heel. And this is where I'm at on them. And they're going to get ripped out. I just hadn't made myself do it yet. I'm going to do it tonight. Because if they were any looser, I believe I could probably wear them as a hat. So I'm going to rip them out, and I'm going to try to knit them tighter because I'm already knitting them on size 1s. I don't really want to go down to double zeros or something crazy like that. So I'm a loose knitter. This yarn fooled me into thinking I was knitting it tighter than I was. So I'm going to frog it, and I'm going to start over. I really am. I was just going to throw it in the corner and forget about it. I thought, no, you're not going to do that. You're not going to do that. You're going to finish it. So I'm going to finish it. So that's my last work in progress I'm going to share this week. So now we're going to move on to future crafting. Okay, so as I've mentioned before, I'm doing the In the Rough MKAL by Michelle Steed. Okay, and it starts on September the 3rd, so I need to get my yarn wound for it. I'll probably do it this weekend. I've got a gathering that I'm going to. I'm teaching on Sunday, and I'm donating a pot of chili for lunch on Sunday, but I think I'll have time to wind yarn. And these are the 2 yarns that I'm using. I've showed this last time. The top one is Expression Fiber Arts in their Endangered Species Colorway series. It is 50% merino and 50% mulberry silk, and it's called Snow Leopard. And if you could tell, I don't know how well you can tell, but every now and then there's this sort of plummy color in there, which I thought matched this Primrose Yarn Company Blackberry really nicely. So I'm going to put these 2 yarns together on my shawl, and then I bought my beads, but you got to wait till acquisitions if you want to see those. So I'm going to do that. Then another future crafting item that I have is a basket kit that Sasha and her mother and I all purchased. And we have yet to make because, you know, there's just not enough hours in the day to do everything, but we are going to make it. And it is the Cherokee Market Basket. Is that not gloriously beautiful? Okay. The Cherokee Market Basket. I'm going to be a little bit careful since this is a pay-for pattern here. Okay. But there's the design. And this is a Jill Choate kit. So it comes with all the stuff that you need to make your pattern. Okay. And we're really excited. It is going to be probably the hardest basket that I've made, to be honest. It's probably going to be even harder than that Knit-Wit basket, but that's okay. I'm trying to up my game. Then I bought this a long time ago, and I guess I just kind of forgot that I even had it. The Grocery Girls do a series called Off Their Needles or Off Our Needles for Craftsy. And I was watching that back in the summer or the spring or whenever it was. I guess it was the springtime. And they showed this really cool scarf on there called Fox Paws. Now, that was way above my pay grade, I feel like, at the time, because I was just kind of getting back into knitting and challenging myself. But Craftsy had a kit, and they had a coupon code where you could get it for pretty cheap. And so it's a pattern by Zandy Peters, and it's called Fox Paws. And I love the design. And then the yarn, the selection that I bought, and I forget the colorways that were, I forget the name of this set of colorways, but it's basically, it reminds me of the Scottish Moors. And I guess I'm missing Scotland a little bit because I hadn't been in so long. But anyway, so these are the, well, I could turn those the other way where the tags weren't sticking out, where y'all might could tell something about them, huh? That would be the smart podcaster thing to do, right? That's maybe why I only have 119 subscribers, because I don't do things right. Anyway, so there you go. All right, so there you go. So there's my color selection. I forget what this was called. It may have been called Glacier or something like that. But anyway, these are all Craftsy's in-house Cloudborne Highland Sport. And it is 100% fine Highland wool. Although I suspect they mean the Andean Highlands and not the UK Highlands, but I don't know. So anyway, so it comes in a nice little drawstring baggie here, and I need to put it in my box of yarn where I've got my moth preventative, so because we don't want any moths munching down on my yarn. I will say this about Craftsy, and I know Knit Picks and places like that also do too. Man, you can catch some good sales if you pay attention. Of course, this summer there ain't been no sales in my world because I'm just trying to get, you know, having to put bow in the trainers was a several $100 expense, which was well worth it, which we'll get to. But that was what I bought, horse training instead of yarn this summer. Now, the lady who did the is doing the in the Rough MKAL, when I bought my pattern, she had a sale where if you bought 3 of her patterns, you got a discount. So I thought, well, okay, why not? Let's do that. So she has some crochet and some knitting patterns. So I decided to buy some more of her patterns. So I bought, because I'm thinking about yarn that I have that I need to do stuff with, I bought a cowl. It's called the Ballyronan Cowl. Alright. And that is a cowl that is made with fingering weight yarn. It takes 360 yards. Okay, so I was thinking about some of that pretty sock yarn that I got sent. Might make a beautiful cowl. And then I found a crocheted pattern called the Suavest Dragon. It's supposed to look like a dragon's scales. And it's called Suavest because you can make a vest out of it if you want to, which I think is kind of cool. And that is a pattern that is also for fingering weight yarn. But depending upon your size, my size would take, I would probably make the extra large size. And so that would take 980 yards of fingering weight yarn. So what is that? 2 and a piece skeins. Okay, so I'm going to put that aside and save that for when I go to East Texas Fiber Festival and see what I can. I might be able to get by with the medium large, but maybe we'll see. I'll do some measuring. I would feel more, I don't like things to be tight, so I might feel more comfortable with, if I did the medium large, then that would just take 800 yards, and that would be 2 skeins of fingering weight. So I might try the medium large and just wear it as a scarf. So anyway, I thought, and that is crocheted. I thought that was really cool. So I picked up those 2 patterns from her. And you know, I guess I'm just such a greenhorn to Ravelry. There's a lot of people who have patterns on there. I know, like, if you sign up for their newsletter and stuff, a lot of times you'll get free patterns. But there's a lot of people that put patterns on there that they're free for a period of time. If you download them by a certain time, they're free, which I think that's really cool. I guess that's so they'll get a kind of a bump in the downloads. So I also downloaded, and I don't think this was one of them. I think this was just a cool, I think this is the same, no, this is not the same lady that did the Raina shawl, but it's a wrap or shawl called Candle Hearth. And why do I do this to myself? Look at all that. But isn't that pretty? I think that's really pretty. And even though I'm a big old strapping farm girl, sometimes I like frilly things, which is why I decided I would sign up for 2 mystery knit-alongs with beaded laciness. Bah! You know, y'all remind me I said this in about the end of October when I'm, you know, doing this. What have I done? Anyway, so, yeah, so that's going to be all of my future crafting, I think, for today. I think the rest of the stuff that I was going to talk about I'll hold for next week. So that is all of my crafting, unless you want to see acquisitions. And I know that's not everybody's deal, you know. I mean, sometimes I go, what do these people do that they can afford all this stuff? They don't own a farm, is how they can afford all this stuff. But anyway, we're going to move on to acquisition. So if you're not interested in that or science or farming, I'll see y'all next time. And if you are, let's carry on over to acquisitions. Okay, so in my acquisitions, you kind of already saw my fox paws kit that I had bought. But let me show you the beads that I picked out for my In the Rough shawl. I had found my dressage coach, like, God, 2 or 3 years ago, gave me a gift card to the local big box craft store, and I ran onto it while I was straightening it up. It's amazing what you find when you clean. And I thought, well, maybe this thing's still good, and glory be it was. And then I caught these beads on sale. So these are the beads that I bought to go with this shawl. They're called Tortoise Rainbow. Yeah, Tortoise Rainbow, like tortoise shell. And I think those are perfect for that. You need 550 beads. I'm sure I bought more than enough because I bought 3 of these tubes. I'm sure that's enough to bead everything from here to there. But that way I'll have plenty. So I bought those. Got that and put that all back together. Then, I had mentioned last week I had gotten the little clover iron at Bargains Galore on 64. So I thought I would show it to you. Now I have one of these already, but it's not as nice as this one. This is a variable temperature one. I haven't actually checked this to see if it heats up. I guess we'll be surprised by that. Okay, but it's a variable temperature one, and it has a little cooling stand. So let's just find out together. We'll just plug it in and see what happens. Oh, it's still got, it doesn't even hardly look like it's been used. It's the Velcro on it looked like it's barely been used. And this actually was one of the girls at the barn's grandmother's. She was over there. So we're just going to do an experiment and find out together. We'll all be surprised that way. Okay, so we've turned it on, and we will hold it and talk about my other... Hey, look, it comes with a stand. We'll put it in its little happy stand, and then we'll come back to it and see if it's getting hot. Because I put it on high. We ought to know fairly quickly if it actually is working. So, yeah, we'll all be surprised together. Okay, now, another acquisition I'm actually wearing, Gremlin, the dog that I had spoken about a few times. Her family founded the Mr. Mo Project. She was a pit bull dog, and I think I mentioned a few times ago that she had died, and I read that Fragile Circle piece. They had a fundraising t-shirt to help raise money for the Mr. Mo project. And of course, I'm a sucker and for stuff like that. So one of the pieces that they wrote about her when she passed away began with, "In the end, I was loved," because it reminisced about her difficult life that she had had early on in her life, and then how her father saved her, and she had a wonderful life at the end, and that was all that mattered, that in the end she was loved. And so I wanted to get a shirt to support the Mr. Mo project, so it came in Monday, so that was nice. I also had pre-ordered earlier in the summer a pen from Wild Hunt Designs, and it says, "I really do care." Okay, I really do care. And this is in response to a lot of the ugliness that's going on in the world, and people saying, "Well, you say you care, but do you really?" Well, yes, we really do. So I purchased this pen, pre-purchased it way back in the early summer, and it came also on Monday. So I thought it was nice that those two things came in the mail together. Now, these are a farm-related acquisition. These, I remember I mentioned the little prints that I bought at Bargains Galore on 64. They're old prints. You can tell by looking at the back, the framing on the back. They are very old. And what they are is a series of little pictures. And this is the American homestead in spring. So you've got the blooming, you've got the baby lambs, and you've got the baby animals and the blooming fruit trees. And then you've got the American homestead in summer. So you've got the babies are growing. You've got the farmer out in the fields with the crops. Then you've got the American homestead in autumn, where they're picking the apples and they've got pumpkins and all of that good stuff. And these are all different houses, apparently, because they're just different. Okay, and then last but not least, you have the American homestead in winter, where you've got firewood and you've got the sleigh ride through the snow and all of that. And I just thought those were so sweet and charming that I wanted to hang those as a set in my den, where I have all the old farm stuff from my family farm. Those were in the dollar corner at one of the sales that we went to, where Mrs. Hayes bought her wicker settee. So I was pleased to get those for $1. So that's my acquisitions. Oh, wait, let's see if this is getting hot. Not so much. Oh, wait. It has a thing. Ah, the light came on. That's a good sign. Okay, we'll get back to this while we're talking about science. We can all be surprised together. Okay. Okay, so if you've been watching my Vlogust, thank you very much if you have been. And I have been back at work now at the university, and I am teaching classes to physics majors and also to people who are going on to professional schools like PT and OT and pre-med. And they actually both start kind of in the same place. We start out with talking about wave motion and sound and hearing and all of that. And today I shared some videos with my classes. I shared one of them with both classes, and then I shared a second one, or the rest of them, with just my university physics class, because they are actually a little bit ahead of where, because they're a self-paced class, so I just kind of dump everything on them at the front. But anyway, the videos that I shared, we've been talking about how sound is formed in different systems. So you have like a string on a guitar, which would be fixed at both ends. So at both ends, it's not allowed to vibrate. So it has to do all of its vibrating in the center. And then you have different kinds of wind situations. So you can have a tube opened at both ends, or you can have a tube opened at one end. And our vocal system is a tube open at one end, because our voice box stops the vibration and then it comes out of our mouth. Or something like where you blow across the top of a Coke bottle. And you've heard people do that where they've changed the level of the liquid in a bottle to make it make different tones. Or you can have a tube open at both ends. So that changed the tone that straw made. But you have to adjust your, it's like when you play a flute, you have to adjust your speed of your air across the opening to get it to resonate. So there are certain people who learn to do that with their voices, where they create like a droning sound with their voice box, and then they use the shape of their mouth and the positioning of their tongue in their mouth to create overtones, and they're called Overtone Singer. So an example of that is the Tibetan mouth music. But I also showed a really amazing video, and I believe the woman's first name is Natasha. But I will share a link to it on here. She's performing a piece called Into the Light, and it's really beautiful. But what she's doing is she's creating this droning sound, this low sound with her vocal cords, and then she's shaping the air column in her mouth and using her mouth as a resonator cavity to create all these higher tones. And it's really mesmerizing to watch. So I'm going to share a link to that. One of my students got tickled and started laughing. I'm like, what are you laughing at? Well, and he was like, you know, oh, I can't help it. I'm like, you're about one step above here. Pull my finger. I'm like, stop this. And I was very proud of one of my athletes stepped up and said, this is really cool. Quit laughing. I think this is awesome. And I was like, yay, yay. I think it's awesome too. The other video that I shared, I heard about, actually, I listened to the Part-Time Genius podcast, which is one of the podcasts from the How Stuffs Works family. And they were talking about the Vienna Vegetable Orchestra, which sounds like what? In Austria, they've existed for about 18 years, and they go to the market and buy vegetables and turn vegetables into musical instruments. And it is an amazing thing to see. Now, does it sound like the Boston Pops? Not exactly, but does it sound like music? Absolutely. So the Vienna Vegetable Orchestra, which was really cool, and they showed the process of building these instruments and tuning them by changing their shape and all this. It was really cool. The last thing I shared, I've already shared on here about the crystal glasses, but I showed them the crystal Armonica, which was actually developed by Benjamin Franklin, where it's a series of nested crystal bowls on a rotating rod, so that rotates them through a liquid so your fingers stay wet and you can play it like a piano. So, and the reason I showed it was in part because we were talking about overtones, but also later in the semester, we're going to talk about crystalline structure. So I wanted them to see that. So I'm going to link all three of those videos down here. Let's see if this is getting hot. Yeah, it is. Yay! My $3 purchase works. Yay. Yay. So it appears it doesn't stay on the high setting correctly, but it works on medium and it works on low. So that's good enough for me. Okay. So, let me plug that. So I am back on campus. I am already planning my service learning class, like I mentioned last time. And the students seem to be very receptive, and they're working very hard. We had a great board problem session today, and that was wonderful. My other class seems to be doing very well, although we did have a little bit of very sad news in that class. That class is usually for people who are sort of upperclassmen. They are juniors or seniors. They usually end up taking it later in their career. Usually because people are afraid of physics, let's just be honest, and they put it off. But there was a young man that was in that class, and we found out, well, I found out on Monday, but he passed away the night before the first day of classes. Don't know any of the details about what happened, but that is a very sad loss when you lose a young person. Well, anybody really, but it seems to be very particularly striking when it's a young person. But back on campus, I am enjoying being back to work. I feel refreshed. You know, I'm excited to get back into our women's leadership meetings that we're having. I'm excited about the service learning stuff. I had a good long talk with my dean, my college dean, the other day about kind of what I want to do, and I'm going to help do some recruiting stuff. So I'm excited to be back to campus. But anyway, so that's all I'm going to share about science this week. So now let's move on to farm life. Okay, so here on the farm, if you've been watching the vlogus, you kind of know a lot of this stuff already. But for those of you who haven't gone down that particular rabbit hole, you know, doing that has been a challenge. I'll be honest with you, because I'm just kind of doing the same thing every day. But you know, that's what I do. So I hope that people have enjoyed it. I have enjoyed doing it, and I've enjoyed all the positive feedback. But so what's been going on lately here on the farm since I last talked to you? We've had some good rain, and the grass as a result is growing, so I'm feeling a little more relaxed about the hay situation. The pastures are looking pretty good. I tried to start my tractor again today, and I guess I'm just going to have to break down and buy a new battery for it, because it's not even really jumping, coming off the, or starting off of the charger right now. So that's a little bit of frustration, because I really wanted to get some pasture mowing done. We had a span of time for about a week where the temperatures were actually relatively mild, and I struggled with that thing for 2 or 3 days, and I finally just got mad and quit. I'll be honest. I'm like, I can't do this. We're getting close to the fair. I've got to get Jacob to come and help me build some rabbit carriers. And then I've got to get their nails clipped and tattoo their ears before I go. So I've got to get that taken care of in the next, 10 days or so. We're about 10 days. Well, the fair starts 2 weeks from yesterday, so 14 days out. But I'd like to get it done before the last minute. So next week sometime is when I'll try to do that, over the Labor Day, maybe over the Labor Day holiday. Then, let's see, Rainbow Riders are kind of on a little bit of a break, but there's some exciting news there. If you haven't been watching my vlogus, I got my gelding bow back from the trainer. And Christy, the girl who rode him, said, okay, when you come up here to pick him up, I want you to ride him. And I'm like, really? Because I kind of felt like I was getting pushed to the side at the barn a little bit, because, well, you really need to let one of the kids ride him first. And I'm like, but if he's been to the trainer, then he should be ready for anybody to ride. And Christy finally just said, I want you on him. I want you to get on him, because he's your horse, and you're the one who raised him, and I want you to get on him. And I'm like, okay. So, I went up there that day, and she rode him first, and then Eleanor got on him. But watching Christy ride him and watching how his whole attitude has changed. He's gone from being kind of a spoiled little lap dog, not that lap dogs are spoiled at all, but kind of being a spoiled big puppy, to being a horse, and understanding that, we have to work as a team, and if you are not stubborn and are not bullheaded, then life is much easier. And, he's become a horse, and I love that. And I watched her ride him, and I saw how she could push him to get him into a canter, or to when he would get a little bit sticky and not want to flex or whatever. And it gave me confidence, so that when I got up on him, I wasn't nervous at all. I rode him and did not feel the least bit of nerves whatsoever. I cried, y'all. I have never sat in a saddle on a colt that I raised, ever. He was the first one, and I've been raising colts since 2007. I dreamed about having that kind of thing my entire life. I've always been obsessed with horses my entire life. And finally, at 49 years old, I sat on one that I raised. It was a huge, big deal for me. Well, then the next day, at Rainbow Rider practice, I was going to ride Flame, but she just seemed a little bit off. She has an issue, a conformational issue with one of her feet, where when they trim her, they need to open her heel up so it doesn't compress the tendon that's in there and cause her to limp. And the guy that trimmed her last time was not the regular guy that trimmed her, and I don't think he opened it up correctly, and so, or widened it out correctly, so she was favoring it just a little bit. And you know, when you put me on a horse, that's an extra 200 pounds or right at it by the time you put a saddle and me on a horse. And I just didn't feel like doing that to her. And Marianne said, well, ride Bo. And I said, okay. So I rode him in practice with a dozen other horses. He had to do all the things that they had to do. No problems. The only time he got a little bit fussed, and any horse would do that, there was a big old horsefly that landed right on his behind and was just biting the fire out of him. And he was stamping his foot and swishing his tail. And I was going to reach around there and swat it. And I thought, no, I don't want him to do that. I don't want to do that in the midst of all the kids. So I got down and I got rid of it. But, you know, wow. I mean, y'all, what a difference that. I should have sent him to the trainer a year ago. You know, and we would be riding him a year now. But, you know, live and learn, and it was time now. And so now I have 3 horses to choose from. Gusty seems to be over her abscessed foot, so I'm going to take her back probably Saturday morning. I'm probably going to take her back over there. There's a play day Saturday morning, and that's probably going to be when I take her back, because Friday I need to go to the tag office and get tags on for my car and truck, and then go to the nail place because my nails are way too long and awful, and I need to get them fixed. And then also, that event up at Dover at the Escape Ranch starts Friday, and I want to try to go to part of that Friday evening. So, in other words, I don't want to haul a trailer. Try to put hauling a trailer in the midst of all that, too, with a horse on it. So, but anyway, so that's kind of where we're at on the farm. You know, the chicks are all growing out great. The rabbits all seem to be doing good, except I did lose Mr. Spots. I believe I talked about that last time. I changed up the feeding protocol on the rabbits a little bit to try to help any future issues there. You know, now we're going to be moving into fall. And that, to me, that's what fair time represents, is it represents the beginning of the harvest in the fall season. And so we start thinking about winter. And really, as a farm person, everything you do is focused on getting through winter, no matter if it's spring or summer or fall. You're always thinking, well, winter is coming. I've got to be getting hay together. I've got to be getting firewood. I've got to be putting food up. I've got to be doing all this. So, you know, those old agrarian festivals, those, you know, like Lammas and Mabbin and things like that really hit home to me, because those are the things that they were thinking about during those festivals about, okay, we're going to celebrate this bounty that we have now, but we need to put it aside, some of it aside, and be thankful for it, because, you know, we know that we won't always have this. And so I try to be mindful of that also. So, yeah, so that's kind of where we're at on the farm. So I'm going to come back and leave you with a few final thoughts.
Look at you, Bob.
That is so good. Oh my goodness. That was so good.
Fine. Just different.
Mm-hmm.
We got my fan going in here, and we got all the cords done plugged and everything for birds. I'm gonna get you one.
Good boy. Good.
The donkey wants you to ride her.
Someday I'm going to be a grown-up podcaster. Okay, so I wanted to share with you a few final thoughts for today. And I said this in my vlogist. I've kind of struggled this afternoon with some feelings of depression, and I've not lied about the fact that I do struggle with depression from time to time. And with self-doubt about things, and people are like, well, why? You know, you've done all this. Well, you know, but I do get overwhelmed here on the farm sometimes. I do get overwhelmed at work sometimes, you know. I get overwhelmed with money. I get overwhelmed, you know, about lots of things. And I had a conversation this morning with a friend of mine. She's actually going to be vending at the event. And we got to talking about some mutual friends that we used to have that we are no longer friends with. And frankly, you know, there's a saying that says, you will be too much for some people. Those aren't your people. And I struggled for a long time to try to fit in to a particular mold. And then I also struggled with feeling like I had to apologize for being honest or being, you know, smart or being, you know, an independent woman or whatever. And I think society very often forces women especially to feel like we shouldn't take up too much room. We shouldn't take up too much space. We should just get along with everybody, and we shouldn't, you know, we shouldn't speak up when we see something wrong because, oh, we might make somebody mad, or, oh, somebody might say something to you. And you know what? There are going to be people that will react negatively to you even when you're right, and even when you're honest, and even when you're giving them 100% of you. They're not going to give you even 25% back. Those are not your people. Those are not your people. And I have to remind myself that from time to time. You know, I've had a situation going on with some of my volunteerism where I felt like there was some small town sabotage going on, and we have addressed that, and it's all good. But that still bothers me. It still bothers me that people are so petty and hateful. And then, you know, I spoke up about something being wrong with the fair website, and I was told, no, you're wrong. And I'm like, I have screenshots. No, you're wrong. You're wrong. I'm like, okay, whatever. You know, it's not worth fighting with people who just are so convinced that their view is the only one. A friend of mine shared a very good article about rectifying global warming, or working to try to counteract global warming. And there are people that would say, if we only all did this, or if we only all did that. For example, if we only all drove electric cars, well, you know, or hybrids. Well, the batteries that are in those are mined from some pretty noxious places, so there's a downfall there. If we were only all vegan, well, you know, in the past, what really people did is they had fields that they planted for food, and then they would let them lay fallow and let the animals graze on them and fertilize them. So there is a balance there. I don't like any my way or the highway, and you're an idiot if you don't agree with me point of view. But we get a lot of that feedback a lot of times in our lives, especially as women, because we're not supposed to speak up or know anything or whatever, you know. And even someone who is had a successful career like I have can still feel at times like a little kid that's being scolded. And I guess I kind of got there today. I kind of got in that headspace today earlier. And I was out a while ago. It was coming a little storm, and it had just blown over. And I was outside feeding my animals and taking care of everybody after I'd had my little upsettedness about how my place looked. And I thought, you know what? My animals are happy. Gusty's better. Everybody's doing good. I mean, you look at little Willie's sweet face, or Luna's little sweet face, or Lucky's little sweet face, or Wally. you know what, who cares that my fence rows are grown up? Who cares that my house, yeah, it needs renovated bad. I need a craft room about 5 times this big, clearly, because the stuff is piled sky high in here. But you know what? Who cares? It's all good. It's all going to work out. I think a lot of times we don't give ourselves enough love and credit for what we're doing good. So, I want to start a make-along that will run through the end of the year. And what we're going to do, folks, is we are going to make something that is self-loving for ourselves. Oh, Willie likes that idea. That was a big sigh. We're going to make that thing that we've put on the back burner because, oh, I need to be making Christmas presents, or oh, I told so-and-so I would make this for them, or oh, I can't, that's too extravagant, or oh, I should save that really nice yarn for a special occasion. You know what? Every day you wake up living and breathing on this planet is a special occasion. Your being here is a special occasion worthy of celebrating. So how about we do some of that? How about we pick out something that we've been wanting to make for ourselves, whether it's knitting or crocheting or sewing or quilting or whatever, and let's get started on it. It's going to be a participation only thing. I don't care if you finish it, but I want you to make something, and I want you to imbue positive, good energy about you and your tribe, your people in that thing as you make it for yourself. So I'm going to open a thread. It's just going to be a chatter thread. I'm not going to do an FO thread. And it's going to be we'll call it self-love, self-care. You're worth it. How's that? I'm worth it. I'm worth it, make along. Because we're worth it. We're worth the nice yarn. We're worth eating off the china. We're worth the quilt kit that's been sitting in, I'm looking over here, the quilt kit that's been sitting in the basket for 15 years. And I thought, someday I'll make that for me. Y'all, that day is today. Okay? So I'm going to start a thread for the I'm worth it make along. And I'm going to draw prizes from just the one thread. Don't know what they'll be. It may be this iron I bought at Bargains Galore on 64, because, you know, I don't get people sending me stuff all the time, and that's okay. I don't expect that. But we'll figure something out that y'all will maybe want, and you know, and then we'll do that. So we're going to start a new make-along to go with the Share the Warmth. We're going to do some good for the world, and we're going to do some good for us. How's that sound? That sounds fair and balanced. Oh, no, don't say that. This is not Fox News. But that sounds like a good idea, right? So, liberal snowflake trigger warning. Sorry, I'm a liberal snowflake. Sorry. Snuck that one in there. Yeah, come on, y'all. Let's do something nice for ourselves. So I'm going to start a chatter thread, and we will run this through December 31st. Now, yes, I know, Christmas knitting, blah, 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 but somewhere in there, start something for you. Whether it's a garment or something with fancy yarn. All I ask is you explain to me why you chose your project that you're working on, and you can post as many times in that chatter thread as you want to. I don't care. Every post is eligible for the drawing, so the more y'all chatter, the happier I am. So anyway, any of my folks out there that are listening that want to donate prizes, let me know. I'll be glad to take them, and I'll give you plenty of a shout out. So I thank you so much for listening each week. It has really, really, really meant a lot to me to have all the wonderful comments and feedback. I'm getting a little teared up thinking about it. Y'all have no idea how much that means to me, because I live kind of a lonely, not lonely, but an alone existence out here where sometimes you just wonder if you're making any impact at all. Of course, Willie tells me yes. Look at that little face. Oh, him asleep. Yes. Anyway, so that's my final thought for today. So until I see y'all again, y'all be good to each other, and y'all take care of each other. And what, Willie? What? What? Can you tell him? Can you tell him? Can you tell him? Look at him. Peace out. Bye.